Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Rob Buffington, who is the CEO of Gordian Staffing, which works in the remote work staffing industry. So I'm curious to learn more about the remote staffing industry. What does this look like, Rob?
Well, at its simplest form, all it is recruiting and headhunting, but from a global talent pool.
Hmm.
COVID has changed the work dynamic. More companies than ever in history are allowing work from home. So all we do is help our clients find the absolute best candidate, regardless of location.
And tell me, what are the biggest challenges that you run into when you're looking for the best candidates? I mean, it's kind of like searching for a needle in a haystack, and it's a global one, not a national one or a local one, regional one.
It certainly is, and the issues in staffing are not unique to the United States, so it is difficult in
Mhm.
other countries. However, mostly it's a numbers game. We have HR and recruiting and screening just like any company would. We also are able to pay significantly above market because of the arbitrage and the cost of living. So we
Mhm.
provide full medical benefits, we provide a savings account, we provide very good benefits and salary to our employees, which in turn encourages them to stay long term, which is better for our clients. So
Mhm.
after a couple of years, we have a reputation of being a good company to work for that treats its employees well, and that benefits everyone.
And you are competing with people, with companies like Upwork, let's say, where people independently source their talent. What is the competition like? Tell me a little bit more about the space. Who are you competing with? What do other companies do?
There are certainly freelance sites, by the task sites, and to be honest, they have their purpose. I probably shouldn't admit this, but I've used Upwork to make changes to a
Mhm.
website or something like that. I believe it fills an important niche in the ecosystem, as it were.
Mhm.
But what we do is we find permanent employees to work for a company, hopefully for 5 to 10 years, as
Mm.
opposed to people on a short term or a by project basis. There are certainly other staffing companies, but as I said, most of them seem to take the view of pay as little as possible and have the margins as large as possible. As
Mm.
far as I know, we have the smallest margins of any met because we want to be price competitive, but we want to make sure we're offering our employees a great place to work. And our clients understand that it costs more to have an employee turnover every 6 months than it does to
Mm.
simply pay 10, 15% more and get the best talent on a permanent basis.
Now, you told me before the show that you work mainly in Mexico and the Philippines. Tell me about those markets.
Mexico and the Philippines are both very popular markets in remote staffing today. Mexico,
Mm.
obviously, they're on our southern border. Um,
Mhm.
the number of people that speak English is amazing. The customer service skills, the attitude, the work ethic are all outstanding. So there's just an amazing pool of resources there in terms of hiring and finding great talent. And then because they're so close to us, because we share culture, not
Mhm.
just the US media and things coming down like movies and music, but
Mhm.
also many Latinos coming north into America, we have a blended culture. So when you
Mhm.
speak to somebody, the barriers are a lot lower, the cultural differences are a lot fewer. They're
Mm.
still there, but it's much more natural and it's much easier to integrate them into a team. And then as they become higher level positions, you can fly them up, and it's a 3 hour flight. I was there 2 weeks ago. I'll be back before the end of the month. So it's
Mm.
much easier to have an integrated team as opposed to someone around the world. The Philippines, the national language is English. They've put major emphasis into infrastructure and all of that.
Mm.
So, and obviously the advantage is cost savings.
Mhm.
The cost of living in the Philippines is lower than Mexico, and so you can get people for certain positions at a lower price. There, you're dealing with the time zone, of course. They're from
Mm.
the central time zone, 13 hours ahead at this time of year. And if you have somebody working Grave long term, you can't expect them to stay for 5 to 10 years. But if they work their day shift, then there's a communication barrier. But for some positions, data entry, AP, bookkeeping, there's certainly positions where that can be a good resource for people. It all depends on the individual client's needs.
Mm. So Tell me a little bit about how a typical engagement would happen with you. Client contacts you, and what do you do to find the staff that they need?
The most important thing we do, aside from finding staff, is managing expectations, because every client
Interesting.
has a different idea of what to expect, and you can solve a lot of problems by investing that time up front. So we
Okay.
explain, I like to say that you're not outsourcing anything. We're helping you open your Mexico office because they're part of your team. They have your company email, they have your company phone number. They should attend training and meetings and socials. Last Friday, we had a virtual social and everyone was there, majority of people being from Mexico. So we manage expectations. We help them navigate cultural pitfalls, things that often cause friction when people have different cultural interpretations and expectations. And we kind of guide them, not just upfront, but throughout the process. And then the next most important thing we do is we identify what it is they actually need. Because a lot of people come to us simply saying, I need help. I don't have enough people. I need help. And it's like, well, that's great, but we need more than that, because if you just throw bodies at it, you're going to have turnover. You need to have a clear job description and expectations and training, a plan for training these people, because we've seen too many people that just churn and burn through people because all they know is they need help, which trust me, I get it. And that's our heartbeat. That's our mission. But the one of the best things we do is help them say, okay, I need somebody who can answer phones 50% of the time, spend 20% of the time answering emails, and the other 30% of the time entering AP into this software program. So they'll need X, Y, and Z. And so when you have that, you can find the right candidate, because you can hire a great person for the wrong place and have it not work out. It doesn't mean that they're a bad employee. It doesn't mean that you're a bad employer. It means that you didn't do your research and you didn't prepare the people properly. So that's the second thing. And then what you would expect is, we go out, we interview, we pre-screen. We have offices, Guadalajara, Mexico City, and Manila. We do our interviews, we do our skills tests. And when we're confident in a round of candidates, we present to the client so they can interview. The idea being that any of the three could probably do the job, but we want to find out which one they connect with, which one they have the best chemistry with. And then after that, after they select somebody, we stay in touch for a lot of the effort is in the first 90 days, monthly after that, to say, hey, how are things going? Is there anything you need help with? Anything you're concerned about with both the client and the employee? Because a lot of times they'll talk to us when they don't want to be confrontational. And so we can find a way to help people address issues that makes it better for everyone.
And so does the employee, are they officially working for Gordian Staffing, or are they working? Okay.
Yes, legally, because they're either Filipino or Mexican citizens, they need to be employed by a domestic Mexican or Filipino company. So we have entities in both places, which have contracts with Gordian US, which we're all owned, the owner of all three entities. And then the US entity contracts with our American or Canadian clients.
So what are the biggest surprises for clients when they start working with you?
Cost saving is obviously the one people ask about the most. People save 40 to 60% on average. However, I don't view us as a cost saving company. That's not our primary mission. Will you save money? Absolutely. But I believe we're in the superior staffing business. So one of the things that we try to overcome is we don't like the term VA. There's nothing wrong with it. Virtual assistant, it's certainly an industry standard term, but because it's become associated with call centers, with frustrating experiences, we prefer to call our people remote team members, RTMs. And so that helps people feel like, oh, this is one of my employees. And so one of the first things we try to convince people of is, it's not inferior people for inferior price. I would put my employees on par with anybody in an equal position anywhere in the world. We have some of the best people working for us, and our goal is not primarily to save you money. It's to find the best people, and saving money is a byproduct.
And how are the companies that you work with, are most of their employees in person? Are most of their employees remote? What's the situation for most of the clients that you work with?
Most of our clients are predominantly domestic. However, because of COVID, domestic can also overlap with remote. So they've been forced to let employees work from home. They've realized it's pretty nice, actually, and they realize, why not just apply that to its logical conclusion and hire remote people from everywhere. So most people are hiring their first remote employee through us, international remote employee, but definitely not at their last. I know that I was my own first customer. I hired for my property management company and my building services company in California, and I never fired anybody. We are not we're not in the chopping block business. I've never gone to a client and said, fire this person and I'll save you money. That's not what we're about at all. If you have good people, keep them. But as positions open up, as people turn over naturally, ask yourself if that could be a remote position. So that's what we did. By the time I sold my company, we were 2/3 remote out of Mexico.
And so the clients start working with you. Most of them, they have some in-person people, they have some remote people.
Yes.
What do you find the clients' experience are like integrating these new folks who are hired from Mexico or from the Philippines?
It'll depend on the client, of course, and a lot of it depends on the attitude they take to it. Some people, they view it as separate, not entirely part of the organization. Some people have the right approach and they just, hey, you're part of the team. We're going to send you the company jacket and the hat and whatever else we send. And the more effort they put in up front, the more they work to include people, the better the outcome. But it really depends. The great thing is when they reach that critical mass or the escape velocity and they get 5 or 10 people working remotely, and then they start coming down to visit them a couple times a year and have in-person training, that's when you really see those great results. And that's one of the reasons why we're so heavy in Mexico.
And do you do any hand-holding to help clients learn how to integrate these new folks?
Oh, absolutely. Aside from the introductory call, we send out regular newsletters with updates and recommendations. We check in, particularly as it relates to, I believe it's day 2, 5, 12, 30, 60, and 90 with phone calls or emails. How are things going? What are you struggling with? And then, as I said, the same on the employee side. And a lot of times we can just say, well, hey, great, this is what's going on. Have you thought about doing it? Because we have clients in 27 states, of course, we keep client confidentiality, but we're able to say, hey, I had a client who had a similar situation and he tried this and it was really successful. What do you want to give that a try? Or we can make recommendations. And yeah, we keep we have a very good retention rate in our company, so we're very proud of that. And as I said, we're not trying to be the cheapest, but we are trying to be the best.
Do you, within your company, do some activities and events specifically for the RTMs who are hired by you? So I don't know, how many people do you have currently who are working in the US from elsewhere?
We have 6 different entities total, and we're right around 400 employees. Hoping to break 500 soon. But yeah, absolutely. We do. So every year we have a posada, a Christmas party. It was absolutely epic this year in December. We had a Day of the Dead party recently. We try to have monthly socials as often as possible. We also encourage our clients to have monthly virtual socials via Zoom, and you can play games, Pictionaries. But that's one of the biggest differences between us and other staffing companies or Upwork, is that you have that third party that is in the relationship and talking to people and finding out what they can do. Our policy is that an HR generalist should be calling each employee on a monthly basis and just saying, how you doing? Do you need anything? Is there anything we can help with? And answering questions. Sometimes it's just confusion. Most problems are not really problems. They're mismatched expectations or poor communication. And we try to help bridge that.
Okay. Let me circle back to something I remember you saying before about the kind of benefits you provide. So what kind of benefits do you provide to the RTMs?
So it's a very good package. It's full major and minor medical. They get restaurant and food tickets. They get an employer matched savings fund, which is 8%. And then they get aguinaldo, which is a 13th month or Christmas bonus. That's 1 month's pay, which is above law benefits. And it's extremely uncommon, I would say. But again, we want to send the message that this is a place you can stay long term. This is a place that wants the best. And I think that the return we get out of getting the best people and keeping the best people is far better than the cost to us.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to ask about that critical mass. You said that when there are 5 RTMs, that becomes something of a critical mass. What do you mean by that?
Well, don't get me wrong. We absolutely have smaller companies and they hire one and that's all they have for years. And it works great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I've noticed that there are levels that people get to. And if a year in, they've only hired 1 or 2 and they're not a small company, it means that they're not seeing the full potential. It's nice. They used it for 1 or 2 things, but if they hire 5, they're going to hire 20. And they're going to keep going. So the same way that a rocket has to break the Earth's gravity and reach terminal velocity, escape velocity, there's that critical number, and it's different for every company, and it depends on their needs, of course. But yeah, if they reach about 5-6 people, that's when I can see they've got it. If they come down for a visit, if they fly a team lead up, that's a good sign they've reached that escape velocity and they've really bought into it. Because again, personally, as my own first customer, because I started doing this before I had Gordian, I would always look at a position and default and say, can it be done remotely? Not for cost savings, but because the attitude was so great, the work ethic was great. It was great for the company.
Yeah, I helped 22 organizations figure out how to get remote workers from elsewhere to work with them. And one of the things that they struggle with is cultural differences. And so I'm curious what you're finding in terms of cultural differences and how you are addressing that issue.
There are definitely cultural differences wherever you go. And that's one of the reasons why we are only in Mexico and the Philippines. And we only went into the Philippines about a year ago. And people have asked, well, why not add the Dominican or why not add India or other places? And I said, maybe one day, but I've been doing this a little over 5 years and I'm still learning about Mexico. And I'm definitely still learning about the Philippines. And so I would rather be an expert on the places where we're concentrated than know a little bit about everything, because there are absolutely, like I said a minute ago, there are mismatched expectations. Nobody's wrong, but culturally this is so, okay, perfect example. When I was getting started, we made an offer to somebody and we had said, hey, what are you looking for in salary? And he says, okay, I'm expecting, 25,000 because I speak in monthly salary rather than hourly or annual. So we make the offer and he rejects it. And we say, what's the problem? We liked you. We made the offer. And he goes, oh, no. When I said this, I meant after taxes. Like this is cash in my hand. Okay. And being an American, I hear I want 50,000 a year. Okay, you want 50,000 a year gross salary, less taxes, plus benefits. So that was one of our earlier mistakes, and just perfect example that. So, for example, we strongly discourage clients from talking about salary directly with employees because it's one of the most common misconceptions. Because they'll say, "Hey, great news! You're getting $1 an hour raise." So what the employee hears is great net bottom line paycheck. I'm getting 1,700 pesos a month more. Great. What the client said was, I want my bill rate, including taxes, benefits, Social Security, all of that. That's going to go up $1. Those are 2 very, very different numbers. Sure. And so those are the kind of things that we help facilitate and we help avoid. And, we could certainly do more. We're always developing more stuff. But yeah, a lot of it just comes down to mismatched expectations. And that's why we're so focused in those 2 places, because we've seen the most common issues.
Okay. Well, that's really helpful. What do you think is the future of the remote staffing industry?
I think we're going to drop the remote and it's just going to be the staffing industry. I think if you look at what was the company, Airbnb, they announced employees could work from anywhere and their site broke the next day because they had so many applicants. Yeah. I mean, I own a building services company in California. Obviously, they clean windows, gutters, that kind of stuff will not be remote until they make a drone to do it, which they probably will sometime in the next 10 years. But I think that most office jobs require very little in-person interaction. So, for example, I have a vice president of the organization who's in Mexico and been with me for years. maybe twice a year, I fly them up. They see the office, we get together, or we meet at conferences, or I go down there. And it's fine. We chat every day. We've been talking this morning. The distance doesn't make a difference. And I think people will realize, number one, that you can shuffle job descriptions, excuse me. People will come to me with a job description and say, I couldn't do this remotely because this 10% needs to be done in person. And I say, okay, well, could this 10% be moved over to an existing person, and could you take 10% of their workload? I guess I could. And then pretty soon you start to take the 10% in person from 10 people and make one person that you pay really well. And then you allow everybody else remote who still gets paid well, but because they don't pay for commuting and high cost of living and things like that, everybody wins. So yeah, I really think we're going to become a global, at the risk of sounding a little cheesy, a global community. We're going to just look at, hey, if you can do the job, I don't care where you are.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and that seems to be like the future as well. Are there any last words you wish to leave our audience with?
I would just say things are always changing, and a lot of people are looking at the world and kind of in a little bit of fear and a little bit of wondering what's going on. But I would just say, if you look at history, we've had a major life-altering event every 30 years for the past ever. It was the internet, it was the booming 80s, it was the 60s revolution and the cultural revolution, it was World War II, it was the Industrial Revolution, or excuse me, it was the assembly line, and then you go back. So this is nothing new. Just stay adaptable, stay agile. People like to talk about survival of the fittest. And I like to remind people that has nothing to do with being strongest. It's most adaptable to your surroundings. And we're in a time of intense change, so stay agile. And then I would just add, you're not alone. If people want to reach out, I'm a consultant. I love what I do. I love helping people. I wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. Then I realized I hate kids, other than my kids. Love you guys. But I love helping people. So if you're a small business owner or whatever, and you want help, just reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk. I'm always happy to offer advice. Absolutely no charge. I like to help people.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. That was very helpful, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to review the podcast. It helps us improve the podcast and helps other people discover the show. And make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you check this out. All right, everyone. I hope to see you on the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.